Hi friends, this is Caitlin. Today we're going to be playing with the Honeybee Stamps Lovely Layers Sunflower Dies that come with this great guide to walk you through all the steps, as well as the Big Time Kindness stamps and coordinating dies. So I've had these sentiments for a long time, probably over a year, maybe 2 years now. But I am just recently picked up the sunflower dies. I love the Lovely Layer die collection from Honeybee, and they had a sale on their site a couple weeks ago, and I, decided to treat myself to a new layering die set. I'm sorry that my camera keeps kind of going in and out of focus. It hates the white cardstock. When it's like a whole sheet of white cardstock, it doesn't know what to do. But I cut all of my dies. I ran them through twice for the flowers because we're going to have 2 flowers and then 3 leaves. And I am using Olos today. So I have my Sandy Allnock Olo hex chart out to help me pick out my colors. It is a game changer. And I am coloring these on Pink and Main's Ice Rink cardstock. I really love how this cardstock works with the Olos. I've never used, Hammermill or any of those other ones that I see people talking about all the time. So I can't tell you if it's comparable or better or worse. I have no idea. But I found, I always have the Pink and Main Ice Rink cardstock around, and it works great. So for this biggest layer, because it's going in the back of the flower, I wanted it to be darker than the other 2 layers. So I'm using 4 colors for my sunflowers, the petals, and that's Y 8.7, 8.5, 2.3, and 1.1. So on the layer that goes in the back only has the darkest 3. The layer that goes on the top is only going to have the lightest 3. And then this middle layer we're coloring right now is going to have the middle ones, right? So it's, I guess it has, it has the darkest, it just has much less of it. And I wanted to have this gradient across all of these layers so that the depth would be extra dramatic. And I'm also doing that by adding these thin foam squares. So these are from Simon Says Stamp. They're my favorite thin foam. They come in like a big and a little mini square. These are the bigger ones. But they're just so thin, and they're perfect for layering something like these flowers where you want some dimension and to make it look even more realistic without adding a ton of depth and like bulk to your flower. So now we're on that smallest one that's going to get all of those very light colors. So this is just getting the 8.5, just like a whisper of it, just like a little tiny flick. And then really going in with that 2.3, and then we'll do all of the edges with that 1.1. So it's not only which colors I'm using, but the amount that I'm using. And the reason I went around that inner circle of each of those layers with that like little ring of brown is because when I'm adding the foam, if you look at it from the side and there's white space there, you're gonna see it. My dog just decided to come down the stairs. Okay, thank you. Lay down. If there's white paper there, you're going to see the edges when you're looking around the foam. So I like to add a little bit of color there. I colored that first one and set it to the side. It was a little bit of a journey, and I skipped adding in the brown and all of that. So I just wanted to be transparent that I only showed you the second sunflower because the process of the first took a little longer. For the center sections, I colored the main centerpiece completely solid, 1 shade of brown. For this ring that goes on the top of it, I went in and did little kind of, not curly cues, but like little tiny circular spirals all the way around just to give it some texture. It has texture like that embossed into it already, but I really wanted to emphasize that. So I just did all of those little squiggles all the way around, and then I glued them together, and then I glued that whole piece to the petals directly with liquid glue, no foam on that layer. Now for my leaves, I wanted these to be kind of a softer green. I didn't want them to pull a ton of attention. I really wanted these bold sunflowers to be the star of the show. So I picked this YG 8.7 as my darkest, and I'm running that over the stem and kind of the veins of the leaf. And then I just use the marker on the flip side of that. So that's the YG 8.5. Olos actually come separate, but I have attempted to connect mine so that they're mostly in order. But that's the good thing about having the hex chart is you can kind of see where there may be gaps or where you can bring in additional colors. For this green combo, I didn't need that. The next shade we went with was 8.3, but it's definitely a fun one, a fun combo to play around with if you have that hex chart. I use it with my Copics all the time still, and I've been coloring with those for over 5 years now. So the hex charts are a very valuable tool if you like to color, you want to be a colorist. For my actual card base, I am going to be using some Honeybee Stamps Grain and Grunge. I don't always try to make my cards very one branded. They usually end up that way. It's not always a conscious decision, but I am obsessed with the Grain and Grunge. You can see I have 2 of them. I've used them. They're very well loved. It was probably, I think I even had one before this. So I think I'm on my 3rd pack of the Grain and Grunge pattern paper. I love it. And then my inner layer that we're going to create, my inner panel, is this white cardstock. It's the same ice rink cardstock from Pink and Main. And I ran it through an embossing folder also from Pink and Main to give it that really cool kind of fishnet texture. I just wanted some tone on tone texture to give a nice bright backdrop to these sunflowers that weren't going to distract or pull too much attention. So I'm working on an A2 size card base. I'm going to go in with my Tombow adhesive runner and add my wood grain panel directly to my card base. I'm going to trim down my white panel so that it's 3 3/4 by 5. So we're going to get a nice good matte frame of that wood grain. And then I just have everything kind of set to the side. I didn't adhere anything down yet, but we're going to go in with Shiny Penny embossing powder, also from Pink and Main. Most of my embossing powders are from them, but I love this color, and it works so well with the inside color of the sunflowers and that wood grain pattern paper. It's like the perfect brown. So I prepped my panel with some anti-static powder, and then I stamped out my sentiment. We're just doing one big hello friend. Obviously, if you've been here before, I know I'm not the only one. I know, but in my head, my thing is like, hi friends. So I love anytime I can use a hello friend or a hi friend sentiment. And I stamped that in embossing ink, melted it down with my heat tool until everything was nice and smooth. And the glitter that you get from these embossing powders is just so beautiful. So I used the coordinating dies. I ran that through my Big Shot from Sizzix, and I am adding my white dry embossed panel so that the actual like fishnet pattern is popped up. I just thought that was cuter. I don't know. I just really liked it, having that texture raised versus like embossed down into the card. And I added my leaves first, so using that same tape runner. I'm going to add all 3 of my leaves and trim them off, the excess off of the edges. And then I'll go back in and add my flowers, because at this point I wasn't sure if I was going to be trimming everything. But with the flowers being so stacked, I knew it would be harder to cut them when the time came. So I figured to make it easier for myself, I'd trim the leaves and then trim the flowers instead of having, even an extra layer to cut through. So I went in with that same Tombow adhesive for my flowers. And I think I even ended up going back in and adding some liquid glue just to really make sure these stuck in place. And for the one on the left, I adhered it directly right to the card. But for this one on the right, I'm adding a layer of like regular thickness foam tape so that it really can sit on top without being bent. And so once I had that, tucked in, I tried to make sure that they were overlapping enough that I wasn't cutting off a lot of flower, but I did trim off a couple little petal edges, mostly on that left-hand side. Then I added liquid glue to the back of my sentiment and popped that on. I thought about adding pearls or gems or all kinds of things to this, but I ended up just loving it with the shine from the embossing powder and all of that dimension and those beautiful flowers. So I really enjoyed making this card. I think it's a great one to have in your stash for year-round card sending. I hope that you are feeling inspired to make something that makes you smile today. I will see you back here soon with another fun card inspiration. And until next time, guys, happy crafting.